Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. We discuss 6 questions in 9 minutes because leaders know how to be concise. First question with our guest today. In a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, first of all, Sean, thanks for having me. I'm Jason Ingalls. I'm the founder and CEO of Ingalls Information Security. Spend most of my time leading a team of cybersecurity experts who identify and manage risk associated with hackers disrupting business organizations, nonprofits, government agencies. We spend a lot of time these days preventing that kind of activity, but we're still fairly well known in our industry as incident responders. So whenever there's an emergency, when someone's been hacked, we get calls from folks like that, and we show up and figure out what happened, put a stop to it, and make sure it can't happen again.
Wow, so you're kind of the 911 for hackers then, is that, or not for the hackers, but for the victims of the hackers?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, that's fantastic. Question number 2, what's the best thing about working with a team?
Knowing that your teammates are going to deliver and that together you cannot fail. When you've got a team and you know you've got people on your left and your right, and people that you're supporting and people that are supporting you, and you're able to get in and get a mission accomplished together, it's the greatest feeling in the world.
That's a great comment. I like that. A lot of trust involved with that. That's a great comment. Question number 3, I hear from other leaders of teams that it can be a challenge to get team members engaged. Tell us your thoughts.
Yeah, I do have to say that I may be a bit handicapped in my perspective, because basically, if you like what we do, you fit a certain personality type, and that means that they're mission oriented and they like what they do. People who do this are typically very passionate about it. They get emotionally involved and they're very mission oriented type folks. So it requires dedication. It goes beyond just being engaged. As part of our team, if you're an incident responder or if you're on the security operations center that monitors our preventative clients, then engagements, you're beyond engagement. You're doing this stuff because this is what's fun. Like you managed to find a spot in a cybersecurity company, and you're doing something that you love. We look for folks like that, and so I guess we're a little different. We're a little edgier, a little further on the tip of the spear than most organizations. So I would say that engagement is part of the admission. Part of the price of admission is to be engaged to do what we do. That is, sometimes we find ourselves thinking of everything in terms of crisis management, and so that's sort of the other side of the equation. Is people tend to think about what's the most catastrophic likelihood for a given situation. So in our environment, we tend to kind of have to rein ourselves in a little bit, rather than we tend to be over engaged. But the reason why that is because every time we find a problem, our focus is on resolving that as quickly as possible, because that's how it reduces risk and impact to our clients.
Well, that's a great response. I really like those ideas about not just taking it to the engagement level, but the passion level, where it becomes all encompassing. I like what you're doing with your company as far as building that into the culture. So I think that's fantastic. Question number 4, what other piece of advice do you have for leaders of teams?
Sure. Make sure, first of all, that your team knows what good looks like. In many cases, when people aren't performing at the level you need them to be at to be part of the team, it's because they don't understand what good looks like, what they can contribute that is good enough to support the team. You need to make sure you've got to give them the opportunity to see what does good look like in order for them to be able to deliver that. And part of that is understanding what is required for them to succeed as part of this team. What is required for the team to succeed? You should have that very well understood by everybody on your team if you want them to succeed. We follow a certain type of business management philosophy. It's called EOS, but one of the best things out of that, in our experience, was the fact that making sure that you have the right people in the right seats on the team, and that those people get it, want it, and are capable of doing what you're asking them to do. That's the best advice I can give anybody that's trying to run a team.
That's great advice. Thank you for sharing that. Question number 5, what other successful leaders of teams would you like to recognize that have had a positive influence in your life?
Sure. Well, I would say that today, I'm very proud to work with my chief operations officer, Lincoln Holton. He serves as our integrator. He knits all of the various teams together in our own firm, and I'm very proud to work with him, and I'm very blessed to have him as a colleague. So I look at him today as an example and an inspiration to what is possible with a team that just continues to grow. But I would say that some of the most important people in my life were the folks that got me into this industry, into the cybersecurity industry. And I would look back and point at one of my early leaders, one of my first real boss that kind of taught me a lot of business sense, and that would be Matt McGregor. Uh, and then I would talk about General Jim Yeager, who was a mentor to me in the early and mid 2000s, got me involved in some of the largest breaches in the world, still some of the largest breaches in the world, by number of pieces of data stolen and by length of engagement, but really just taught me what it was like to be on a high profile breach where the stuff you're working on is in the news. And then I would also like to say thanks to Mike Stewart, who also worked with me during that time, but really taught me the nuts and bolts of how to manage a team during a crisis, which is an incident response. You know, when people get hacked, they're in crisis. How do you manage a team that's supposed to resolve that crisis? Mike Stewart helped me a lot in that, so I'd like to thank him for that.
Wow, some great people you've had the opportunity to be around. So that's a great example of just helping you as a team member to build up. So I think that's great. Thank you for recognizing them. Last question. Tell us about your first job.
My first job was changing tires at a local convenience store in rural Louisiana. It was 20 miles from the nearest red light. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, but I would be there at 6 in the morning with a tire iron and an impact wrench, and I would jack up these big log trucks and replace the tires that they pop going through the woods, picking up pine logs to go take to the mill. And it was pretty hard work, but it taught me a lot about what hard work looked like, what good looked like, and you know, I have to also thank Ray Sherrier, who gave me that first job.
Well, that's great. That's a unique job. That's the first time I've heard of that one. So I love it. Well, Jason, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. How can people find you?
Yeah, sure. I would suggest go to a website, which is iinfosec.com. So iinfosec.com. That's Ingalls Information Security. And there you feel free to send me a note via contact us. I read every one of them, and happy to chat with anybody if you've got any questions.
That sounds great. This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, go to teamengagementpodcast.com, and you can download our engagement booster tip sheet for some ideas on how to boost engagement all the way from hiring through the time when you need to part ways with the employees. Again, that's teamengagementpodcast.com. Thanks so much for joining us, and have a great day.